FileMaker.tv. My name is Margaret. I'll be your broadcast engineer for today. I'm here with the wonderful Kristian Olsen. Hey, Kristian, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Margaret. It's been a little while.
It has. It's always good to have you on stream, though. Today we're doing Perform Script on Client with Kristian, which will be a fun discussion. I know that a lot of you guys watch streams, but every once in a while I'll get someone giving me a message that goes, hey, I really don't like the stream format. We keep our streams very conversational. It is a way of interacting with and giving back to the FileMaker community by sharing information. Though you share information, we like to talk and take questions and talk, interact, essentially live. This means that our discussions can kind of meander on occasion. They're meant to be. That is part of how they work. As a result, I highly recommend that if you're here to learn about FileMaker, you need something very focused and very specific, please buy our video training. Not only does it support the free endeavors, because we do this 5 days a week, but it also basically gives you access to the training you're looking for, which is very short videos from 4 to 30 minutes, extremely focused. It covers very specific topics. There's really in-depth descriptions. You can pause and back up when the presenter gets too far ahead for your liking. Feel free to give that a shot. So, with that all being said, Kristian, what are we doing today?
Well, I think we've got something fun today. So Richard called me up. I think it was on Monday. I've actually been off on paternity leave. And so Richard gave me a call. I happened to be at my desk and he's like, hey, I guess Nick's sick. Can you come do a stream? And so I've actually had an add-on that I was hoping to release at some point before the end of the year, but being off of work, it was a little hard to get to that. But I was like, you know what, let's see if we can't knock this out. So I've got a file that's functional. I don't know if I would call it completely done because I always like to sit and tinker with them. I'm sure you guys can all relate to that. But I wanted to start off with, well, I'll tell you a little bit about what it is. And then, in Richard fashion, I want to tell you why it matters. And so what I call this, or Richard calls this perform script on client, I've kind of been calling it a notifications integration. And if you guys that are familiar with me, of course, I've packaged up into an add-on. It's in the most current release of Wolfpack. I don't know if I read that up. Did you put it up on the...
Yes, if they download it, they will get it. So.
Beautiful. I didn't do any of my stuff because I'm still a bit rusty right now, but it should be in there. You should find it under PSOC notifications. And so why does this matter? What is this thing even? So this is going to allow you to do system-wide or user-specific notifications or actions on other computers other than your own. So PSOS could actually call all of your users and do something, or it could call a specific user. Where did this come about? I have a client who has a pretty interesting situation in which FileMaker is not the source of the data, but the system that they interact with. And so there is a SQL database that they go and retrieve all of the data from and bring it over to FileMaker so that they can use FileMaker, interact, and view the data. This means that every 2 hours, they have to go refresh that data to make sure it's as current as possible. That means that while people are looking at reports, portals and whatnot, everything can kind of disappear. And people were getting confused and they were complaining to my client who is their developer. And he said, well, Kristian, isn't there some way that when I run the update, a window could come up on screen and tell them this is being updated? And I toiled with this for a while because I thought, first step, let's put a hide calculation. When the data in these portals disappears, let's hide them and let's show something. However, something has to trigger the screen refresh, and so that didn't work. And I tried a number of other things, none of which worked. And so I remembered that when I was brand new to RCC and FileMaker, somewhere around 2014, Richard was talking about this cool file that came out that allowed other computers to call one another and actually perform a script on that machine. And I was like, that's really what I need. And so I reached out to Richard and he remembered this and he went and he found that demo from ClickWorks, which we can give if we want. I think it's in one of our video trainings somewhere because back in 2014, you can see a much younger Richard and Margaret messaging each other through FileMaker. And so while this is adapted from the ClickWorks file, how I use it is very different. It's very nifty and it's using the same technique, which I'll discuss here in a moment. But in theirs, it's more of a messaging application. And so user A can message user B. Very cool. If you want that specifically, that file already exists. So I've taken away from it. Instead, I have this notification system. And so, you know, what is the technique here and how does it kind of work? So first I want to give you guys a little bit of a caveat on this. It's a little bit of a hack. And while we generally, I think I keep looking at my screen like you guys can see it. I remember I should just move this over here. While I and I think the rest of you always try to avoid things that can be hacks, sometimes you find yourself experimenting with one of these. Now, part of the reason I was waiting to release this demo is I have a client using this. As far as I know, he's rolled it out, and so I was very much looking to see what issues exist in the wild that we haven't come across. And so far, very little to nothing has been reported to me. However, at the very end, I get a bug to show you guys. And if anyone wants to try and go solve it, love to see if you can figure that out. But I don't think it's enough of a bug to stop this from being used. And as of right now, this demo seems like it is functional. So how does it work? How can one FileMaker client or PSOS call another file and perform a script? So the way that this file works, there's kind of two pieces, if you will, that make it function. On startup, it goes to a table. I call this notifications, and it makes a record for you. That's your notification record, and it stores the ID for that in a global. So now as you're running around doing stuff, your session kind of knows, hey, I have this notification ID. And then there's a layout, and that layout is off screen where you can't see it, and it has a script trigger on it for on record modify, and it's on your record. Okay. And so another user can go and delete that record. Specifically for my client, what happens is when he needs to run the update, it goes to the notifications table and it deletes all the records. That means user 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them are sitting there. They have that window open with that record. It deletes the record, and no matter what they're kind of doing at that moment, it triggers the script. When it triggers the script, you can now do something. Now, in this case, I'm showing a notification, but you could do something else with that. And that's why in those script, you'll see a spot that says do something here. Maybe you want to evaluate if something is true or false. So it gives you a bit of flexibility there. But it's very important that the user have that window open and that they be on that notification record. That's kind of part of the hackiness of this and where bugs can come up. Is kind of the reliance on that. And that window being off screen is really the most fragile part of it. In the original demo, that's not how it worked. But for my client, the issue that we kind of came across is where are people going to be? Because we need to delete this record and it needs to be somewhat. So I was thinking maybe we'd have relationships to it, but then you got to sit and draw all these different relationships. So it was actually my client who had the idea, well, what if we just had the window open somewhere? So I do want to give him a bit of credit because I thought that was pretty neat. And that's what allows us to go ahead and send the notification. So let's start by going ahead and doing the integration, and then I'll continue with a little bit of how it works. I know, at least for myself, kind of seeing things always makes it, I don't know, start to jive a little bit better.
Yeah.
And again, there's little parts here that I'd like to make a little bit easier, but maybe a version 2 of this will come. But let me go ahead and share my screen. Switch to light mode because I love all of you guys, even though it's painful for me and I'm in my giant blown up screen here. But we're gonna bring over starting. Actually, before we bring over starting point, let's bring over my friend Wolfpack. So if we go in here and we search for PSOC, there it is. Here is the new add-on. I've already installed it. For those of you who are new to add-ons, you're going to want to download Wolfpack and you're going to want to install this. So that's kind of step one that I tend to kind of skip over now. The other thing is, and I'm going to use this during today, so I hopefully don't miss anything, is there is a pre-flight step-by-step checklist on what we need to do. So let's kind of move that over there. I'm going to drag our copy of starting point over here. This thing's huge. Let's see if we can't just make the window a little smaller right now, because we don't really need to see a whole lot here. And Margaret is going to help me with this later. But Margaret, making sure you don't have it open yet. You need to open it fresh after I do the integration.
Nope,
So
it's
I'm
not
going to go
open.
in,
So you're good.
beautiful. So I'm going to go into layout mode here, and I'm going to go to the add-ons panel, which, unless you guys use add-ons, probably a space in layout mode you don't use very often. And we're going to click on our handy plus over here, and look, it's at the very top, PSOC notifications. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that, and it'll take a moment to install, but it's pretty quick. Get yourself a handy beverage while it does that. Mine is not Diet Coke. All
No,
right.
I was just lamenting my lack of Diet Coke.
So there's my add-on. So if we go back to Wolfpack, step one is really complicated here. Drag the notification button onto the layout. So we're going to come over here. We're going to drag it over. Okay. Now, for those who maybe haven't done a lot of add-ons, I do want to back up for a moment because we have lots of time for this today. So we're going to run through this pretty quickly. When I clicked that plus there and installed it, some stuff happened behind the scenes that's pretty cool. And again, those of you who've seen me before, you're like, Kristian, I already know this part. But on the back end, it went ahead and it brought over some tables for me. So these didn't exist before I hit that install there. So we've got some new tables here. Somewhere on here, I think is, whoops. It's either going to be called notifications or PSOC notifications. There it is, notification. So there, oh, and there shouldn't be a record in there, but it looks like there is. I'll need to clean that up later. Not a big deal though. And then also this message table, which we'll talk about a little bit. The other thing that happens when you do the add-ons, a couple things, is it added some layouts for us, which we'll talk about. And then it also added our scripts. So at the very bottom here, we've got a folder now for PSOC. So there's our scripts. So that's, for those of you who, again, I'm going to probably keep saying this over again, haven't done add-ons, one of the really nifty things I've been using it more and more so for is just moving blocks of code, because it can really save you a lot of time. Okay, so we've got that installed.
Right.
Let's go back to our instructions and let's see what's next. Okay, so it says add the PSOC initialization script step to your startup script if no startup script attached one. So those of you out there, I'm going to guess that most, if not all of you, probably already have startup scripts in your solutions, unless you're brand new, in which case this might be a bit advanced for you. But we're going to go into the script workspace. And if you're not sure about your startup script, go to File Options, go to the script triggers, and you can see your startup script is going to typically be tied to on first window open. Okay. So over here, we've got startup. And you can see I've been playing around this before, so it's like, hey, what script do you want? And if we look at the instructions, I said it out loud, we're going to want that PSOC initialize. Now, if you want this feature to be able to be toggled on and off, you got a couple options here. You could add a field in preferences, or you could put an if condition here that, if true, then this will go ahead and fire. But for now, I just have it set to fire regardless. And there's a second way to decide whether or not you want this to run at all. And that is inside of that initialize, there is a global variable that says run. So when this is on, the integration works. And when it's off, the integration doesn't work. So 0 off, 1 on. So you can bake in your own logic, or just decide that after this is integrated, you can turn it on or off. Like maybe something happens and you need to work on it. You don't want it to run when it goes to server, figure out your own logic on that. So what's the next step? The next step is to add it to a close down script. So same kind of instructions. If you don't have a close down script, you're going to want to create one. RCC. Can you guys tell I'm a little rusty? Starting Point already has one of these. So we're going to go over here to close. And on this one, I'm looking for that global variable. Is this integration turned on? If it is, then we want to go ahead and perform script, not last window, PSOC shutdown. And I know that because I've done this a bunch of times in the last 2 days. But if we go back to our handy instructions, you can see that it shows us right here, PSOC shutdown, and that we've got our global variable to allow us to turn this thing on or off. Okay, we're flying right through this. What's our next step? Attach last window close validation to the on window close script trigger. So all of these triggers are going to be found in the file options. Now, this is one that we didn't already have one for. So we can see there's an unknown because I've been playing with this again. So we're going to scroll down there. None of these have parameters. And we're going to do last window close validation. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to go to, and we'll come back to that in a second, actually. So we'll come over here. What is next? Well, next you can customize your card layout for the message that you want. So let's move that out of the way. Let's go look at that, and then let's talk a little bit about how this works and how you might want to use it for yourself. So I've got this card window here, and for my client, it only does one thing. And so on this layout, we go into layout mode and we put the message that we want here. And that's pretty much it for that. But I know that you guys want more than just that. So you can go into this button that's here and see that it is going to say notification and then message. So if you want a dynamic message, which is completely optional, then what you need to do is basically display this field through the relationship to message here. And it's just that field. You can do that as merge text. You can put in a button bar as a calculation. You can add the field however you want to do that. You could even come in here. I meant to change the demo to do this, but I hadn't yet. This says something along the lines of, is empty. Default message else. There's your message. So that's something that I would very well do so that I can just have a optional dynamic message, otherwise kind of a generic one. Okay. The other thing that you can do is you could actually just display a custom dialog. In fact, the custom dialog doesn't have the bug that I'll talk to you guys about later, just a little odd. You could also decide, I don't need notifications, but I do need it to perform some sort of script that does something. That hasn't come up for me yet, but I could very well see that being useful. So this is the next option in the instructions. And so let's talk again about a little bit what's going on behind the scenes. So when it fires, it goes that notification table, it deletes that record. Deleting the record triggers the script. The script is what allows us to then show things like the notification, but other actions could happen as well. And then it will recreate a notification record for that user. Now, if you do want to pass an optional message over here on notify, we've got some optional script parameters. You don't have to do anything here. This is where we would configure the message. And so because Margaret's using this, I'm going to put, hi, Margs. The stream is going great.
It is.
And then you can also target an individual user. This is part of the integration that I haven't really developed any further. The original file let you do messaging. So if you wanted to target a user, you would need to have some sort of logic to figure out which notification record you wanted. That might be something like a portal on screen that you click on and click a button, and then it could grab the ID, grab a message, and send it to them. That's more in line with the original, but I didn't want to take away that ability to focus on a specific user. So this is either one user or everyone but the person that is, or machine that's calling it. So these are all optional in here, and we'll come back to those two once Margaret actually demos those for us. So I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to go to browse. And let's go back to our handy instructions for a moment. I know I'm bouncing all over a little bit. Okay, so this is where we get into the optional ones. And this is kind of what I just talked about here. You could pass an ID and it should only go and message that person. How you get the ID, nothing in the demo is built to help you with that. That would all be on your shoulders as of right now. Similarly, you can pass the optional message to that user or users. And I just showed you that. And we're going to walk through that. So let's see this in action. And then I'm going to open up the scripts to try to better explain what's going on.
You kind of did, but I want to see it in depth because the fact that you delete a record to get this to trigger is, I know you said it was a hack, but that's wild to me.
Yeah, even when I got this to work, but I didn't understand what was going on for a while. And then especially coming on today, I was like, I need to make sure I can explain to people what's going on rather than just saying it's magic and it does work. So let's do this. I'm gonna close this because it does need to initialize. So I'm gonna close that. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna go to recents, open starting point.
Okay, I want you to let me know when you need me to open this.
You can go ahead and open yours, and I'll let you be, it's going to say hi Marks on my screen, but you can be the button pusher if you want. Um, One thing I want to show you guys here real quickly. So if I go to Windows, I do have a whole bunch of stuff open right now. But you'll notice that one of these things says notification trigger. A little trick that, let's see if it works in the live stream with my weird, it does. Okay. I don't know how many people know this or not, but I imagine most of you with any level of experience have encountered a situation where a window gets open. That's so weird. Where a window gets open off screen and you're not aware that it's there and you're trying to figure out if it's there or it's causing weirdness. So on my Mac, I have I think it's Spaces that's enabled. And so
Mm-hmm.
if I have it set up for control down, it could be something else for you. But if I do control down, it'll show me all of my windows, including those ones that are off screen. And this is one of the
Oh,
ways that I'll be like, oh, I have this window that's off screen because all these other ones are on my other monitor right now. I can go over there and there they are, just gigantic. But that's how I will actually see that those things exist. And that's that window I mentioned that's really important. So, Margaret, let me know when you go ahead and open this up. And I see David Angel has a question about the Windows. So David, if I something just happened, that was weird. This
yeah.
shouldn't be on screen right now, but I'm gonna try to, I'm just gonna close
Shove it
this
off into
again.
the corner.
No, I'm gonna actually just close it
Okay.
again and hit cancel, and it should go away. So Dave, because I want to make sure I show this properly to David Angel, assuming I understand his question correctly. So if I go to window, David, and I select this, I am selecting the window, but it doesn't come on screen. And even if I do this control down and I select it, it doesn't come back on the screen.
Interesting.
So it can actually be a real pain in the neck. I had one earlier where it just kind of got pushed above my monitor, and other than opening like a script and doing move window or something, a lot of times I end up just closing it. Or what I have in most of my files, you guys, is, and I have it turned on right now from the script menu, but I always have a close window script because one of the most frustrating things is when you get like a card window that opens off screen or something that doesn't have a close command and will not close with Command W or Control W. So let me know if that answers your question, David, or if you've got a follow up on that. And then, Margaret, once you're in, let me know.
I am
I think you might be.
officially
Okay.
in, yes.
So go ahead
Yes.
when you're ready and click that notify button. Let's cross our fingers this thing works.
I'm going to click the button.
There we go. So
Yeah.
my hands are off the keyboard. No trickery here.
No magic what happened except the scripting magic, of course.
So if Margaret wants to share a screen, we can show that back and forth. So Margaret clicked a button and it just performed a script on my computer. In fact, let's go ahead. Look, of course, I got a caps lock there. At least I didn't spell anything wrong this time. I'm going to close that window. I'm
Yes.
going to make sure that I'm over here. I'm going to read that message from David Angel in just a second, but I'm going to open my script workspace so that you guys can kind of really see this because the demo could be really, really fast. Like, all right, we're done. I hope you guys liked it. But I want to try to take some of the mystery out of this. So go ahead and click that again, Margaret, and let's see if beautiful. So you'll see on my screen here, I got an on record load. And I should have had it open there, but in the notifications table, there should be two records, one for Margaret, one for me. I think there's actually one for my demo that I should delete. And it just deleted that record. So that layout that's off screen that I showed you guys, this notifications, I'm not on it. I'm on this layout right here. I can prove that to you by going over here and showing that my window name is in fact this one right here, not the other one. In fact, if we do window names, we'll get a list of all my windows that are open. There in this file, there's the notifications. That is not the one that I am on right now. So there's the list, and there's the one that I'm on. So I am on this layout, but because that record deleted on the screen, on the window off screen, this script fires, and this script does a couple things. So it's going to go through basically some validations. I'm going to mostly jump over these, but there's that global variable. I program into a lot of these things this on and off switch so that if you have screwiness or just want it to go away, it doesn't have to run, especially something like this can be a little hacky. So first we want to make sure that it's actually on. Then it's checking some stuff related to the original integration that isn't necessarily being used a whole lot right now, but I wouldn't necessarily remove it. One bummer, I forgot going to light mode. I don't think it's showing some of the script steps. We'll see that. So then it's going to make sure it's going to select that window off screen, and then it's going to enter find mode, and it's going to look for the person's ID. Okay. And no records were found. And look, on record load fired again. I don't think it's, oh yeah. So that's one of these validations stops this from firing over and over again on itself. So that's where that Xeno trigger comes into play. So I lied, it is being used. And then this is a little counterintuitive, but if the found count is 0, then it performs, meaning that it did successfully delete your record. That part was a little confusing to me because it's almost always you want to find that something's valid. So when you get the found count equals 0, nothing is actually wrong. And what it's going to do right now is recreate a record, because you always need to have one in there. Otherwise, you get one notification and that's it. You're done.
I was
so it's going to
wondering
go
about that.
So there we go. So see, it's triggering the on record load again. So again, we need to make sure to stop this thing from running over itself. And then it's going to go ahead and store the new ID from the new record in that global. Because again, that's how it knows your record from any of the others. We're going to commit this. And this is, I left an if statement here, even though it's just, it's set to, we'll open these scripts up in a second, everybody, don't worry. This is where it's going to do something, okay? And this is where I also try to validate that I'm on a correct window and not the one off screen. More on that later. So it's going to go ahead and select the window, and then it's got a new window. And this is the script we'll open up because this is where you can do some other stuff. So now it's open that new window here, and now we should start to kind of get to the end of this. So we've got a flag that I think, oh, so it's going to enter find mode. I think it's going to clear a flag. And then on record load, it's going to exit this again one more time. And then it's clearing that flag. So there's that thing that stops the on record load from running over and over again. We do need to clear that when we're done so that it will run again next time. And there we go. So we're back to kind of where we were. And if I go to manage database, there should be 2 records and notifications. But like I said, I think the add-on came with one, which is an oopsies on my part. Oh, no, there it is. So 2. There's one for Margaret and one for me. So, and there's not a whole lot in this table. There's an ID. We've got ID constant, which is basically the same as ZK1. I don't even know if we need both. No trigger, and then this global that tracks what you are. And then the message one, all that has is an ID that doesn't even do anything right now. ID constant and a message that can be stored. When we walk through the script, I'll kind of show you what's going on there. Let me pause for a moment because I did see a couple questions come up. You could switch the window off screen and run a script to maximize it. That will show the window. I don't think that will actually show the window, David. Now, I could be wrong, but I think so. When windows are off screen, if you guys aren't familiar with this, and I'm not saying that you're not, David, I used to have 3 monitors. And so some of the starting point scripts, they send things to like -5,000, and I would actually see the window because that's your 3rd monitor. So I a lot of times will do -9,999, but basically it's just shooting it off to a window that almost nobody actually has. And so I believe, and I could be wrong here, if you maximize it, it's going to maximize it on that window that doesn't exist. If, on the other hand, David, though, you do a move resize command, you could move it to your window with a position like 0 left, 0 top. In fact, I originally had that in the demo file because the notification layout, I'm going to go open it real quick. This one right here. Oh, it's not going to open because it's off screen. That window is like 1 pixel by 1 pixel. So if I don't know if you guys know this or how many people know this, if you double click on the header of a window or up here, it'll typically resize it to kind of what it's supposed to be. So on that layout, if you double click on it, it turns into this speck. And so even though it's not off screen, you can't do anything with it. So I do a resize. So the resize is the way that I bring it back. But if Maximize does it, you know that it is. Throw it in the thread so that other people can be aware of that. You could have all sorts of fun with this. Yeah, absolutely, Canberra. I agree with the skull and crossbones there. You could have all kinds of fun with this. Why don't you open a new layout with the same base table without the on record load script trigger? So the on record load script trigger is fundamental to how this works. So if we have the layout off screen and the record deletes, it just innocuously deletes. Think, for example, if I'm in the contact section of the database here for Daniel, and there is a note over here, and Margaret, can you go ahead and go to that record real quick?
Yeah, give
And I
me a
want you to create a note.
cool. Give me a hot second. Contacts
And I'm going to open my script debugger.
note.
So I want you to make a note. It doesn't have to say a whole lot.
Invoice printed. Subject. He paid me monies.
Oh, to stop the additional, but not the first one. Because you could maybe. I didn't want to open windows and close windows, so I just did it all in there. I can't remember. I think that's what the original demo did. So again, I kind of just took what they had and adapted it. But even though that's not your question, Dave, it'll still show this to other people. So Margaret created this note here. Nothing happened on my screen. I mean, the data shows up, and then Margaret, go ahead and delete it.
Okay. Oh, whoops. Sorry. Hold on.
You're
They're having
fine.
me navigate between multiple windows so I can best show the show and also do the cool thing. Delete. Yes, I do want to delete this. There we go.
And see it disappears. So, David, I don't think you're all that surprised by that reading your follow-up question there, but I just want to make sure other people see that when you go and create and delete records, it magically does not cause anything to happen on someone else's machine. The data will show up and disappear, and you don't necessarily need a refresh to see it, but that triggering of the script is really what is the neat hack in this. That is the technique. So let's do this. Well, before I kind of just keep steamrolling on, are there questions anywhere else, Margaret? Do you have any questions before I maybe open up the script and dive into it?
Uh, I'm seeing people are saying hello, and this is interesting. I don't see any other questions. My question is,
Oh, and that wasn't David. I'm sorry. That was Yuktok. You guys have the same icon, so I kept saying David, but
no,
I was
I was briefly wondering about that, but I got
my
distracted.
apologies.
Nah, it happens. Um, my question is on record load. Is there another on anything load? There is, right? Couldn't you do
There's a
this?
bunch of.
Yeah, couldn't you do this same technique with a different script trigger?
So
Or
let's
is
go
it
take a look at
only on
those.
record load that will work?
I think that is a very good question because one of the bugs we're going to get to near the end here, I tried a lot of things to solve it. And I needed to trigger scripts. And so I was experimenting with these, but it's all, anytime you guys can come up with these thought experiments or something kind of interesting, you learn a lot about, or at least I have learned a lot about the platform and how things really kind of intricately work. So you've got on record commit. Now, do you have to change data in order for the commit to trigger? There's some questions there. You probably need to be on the right record. Does a global cause a commit to fire? These are things you have to kind of experiment with and see if they'll work for you, because if it can't be a global, then you got to be on the right record. Could it be an on-record commit? Will that fire if another user commits it? So this is going to be a test question for you, Margaret. What do you think? If I'm on a record
Yes.
and you commit it, will my on record commit script trigger fire? Yes or no, and
Oh,
why?
I'm saying no. Well,
Let me know if you want a clue.
My first thought is that the server handles the commit, but then it also has to push the information back down to you. Is that considered a commit in and of itself? Uh, my initial, well, it has to release the record. So,
I think your head is in the right place. So
uh,
David said it's in the right place too. He's like, you're gonna have an issue because of record locking.
yeah,
But Yiktok also just said kind of the key there.
no, because
No, because you didn't do anything. So who committed the record? If I'm on it, let's say I didn't lock it.
yeah,
I'm just
mm,
on the record and you go and you change the data. Did I commit anything?
no,
So the on record commit shouldn't fire would be my guess if I was being tested by Claris right now.
hmm
If I had the record open, you wouldn't be able to commit it because the record would be locked.
locked, yeah,
Yeah. On record revert, I haven't really experimented. I don't know if I've even used that script trigger,
huh?
truth
That
be told.
where? What does that even do? Sorry.
Yeah. So if you go to revert the record, then the script trigger fires.
Interesting. Okay.
So I could see the use for it. On layout keystroke, this was one that I was actually experimenting with. It was kind of helpful, but I
Mhm.
had an issue, and I'm not saying this isn't resolvable, but in the time frame I had today, I couldn't solve it. Um, on layout keystroker, on layout keystroke fires when you push any key kind of on your keyboard on the layout.
Mhm.
Um, how can you do that in a script?
Oh, that's interesting. Um,
I'm not saying you can't. I couldn't get it to do it earlier today. I had better luck with the on commit. Um, on layout enter. Now, going back to your original question, in terms of triggering this, are there other ones that will work? So on record commit, probably not. On record revert, probably not. Keystroke, they're on their machine, not yours, so probably not.
mhm.
Enter, exit. Again, it's happening on their machine, not yours. And then you start to get into like mode. None of these, I believe, would actually help you to do that.
Yeah. Interesting.
So it's a good, and then I should know his name off the top of my head. I just want to emphasize this came from ClickWorks. This is not my technique. Like many of my add-ons, I've gone to another developer that's done something really cool and just tried to package it up in a way that's easily digestible and integratable for people. Um, you might be able to get away with it on so David, sorry, I'm reading these and not sharing it with our other viewers. David Angel asked, what about using an on install on timer? I think that might theoretically be possible. When I was new at RCC, Richard gave me a task to like update a clock on the top of the window. And I used an on timer, and because of that experience, I try to never for the life of me use that script, that script. So you might be able to. My own experience, and everyone has their own likes and dislikes. I
Mhm.
try to avoid that script feature like the plague. I just find that support is miserable. And then if you're a developer, like we have an RCC database where we get all our tech support from you guys, and it has an on timer. So when I used to manage the coaching department, I'd have that window open so I could respond to tech support kind of quick promptly. But it meant when all the other files I was in, I constantly had my script debugger being like, oh, the thing fired, oh, the thing fired, and my own personal preference is that it's miserable. And then I just run into different issues. But David, I think it's theoretically possible that could that trigger something. It goes to look to see if something is true and then give you a notification. So I would say it's possible. I would probably just try to avoid it. Other questions?
I don't see any at the moment. I know people are typing, but I don't
Yeah,
currently.
no worries. But by all means, interrupt me. So what I'll do, because I'm watching the time, is let's jump in here and take a look at some of these scripts. So
Yes.
the initialized one, I won't spend a whole lot of time on. Basically, it opens the, well, I guess I'll spend a little time. We check to see if we want this thing to run or not. And then
Mhm.
I give the window a name. More and more so, I've been really liking to name windows and refer to those windows because for years, the majority of my FileMaker career, I do a new window, close window. And 99.9% of the time this works. Now I really like to name the window and overtly close them. Only 0.5% of the time has this actually bit me in the butt because something else already had the name. So, and I actually deal with that in here. So we go ahead and open the window and we name it by the global variable. If for some reason that name was taken, then we just update the global variable to whatever the window got named. So if for some reason you had two of those, because someone named one of their windows, then it would get the -2 and it would work.
Mhm.
Then we grab, oh, see, I got to highlight these, I think.
Yes, you
Sorry
do.
about that,
You
because I
can't
do
see them.
use dark mode.
Yep.
So it goes that table and it makes a record, and then it's going to store that ID in the global variable. And again, that's important. That's how the system knows yours from any of the others. I'm not using these features, but I don't want to remove all the stuff into the demo. But essentially, there is a field in there with ZK1. And this is if you want to have a portal or something that kind of shows you if people have gotten the notifications or not. And you refresh this by doing one. That's how you make portals on other people's screens. Update. It's not really my demo, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but if you use the individual user features or options in here, it's something that you might want. We clear the Zeno trigger. That's the thing that allows the on record script trigger to actually fire, since that window's open and a lot of stuff is triggering it. Then we've got our shutdown. So these again are the things you need to open it. So what is this shutdown? I can run through the whole thing, but I'll tell you that it is two primary things. Let's move this out of the way. This is my main window. And I didn't realize this until I'd rolled out with the client. I realized I had a major issue. If I go to close this window right here, I would expect the database to close down because that's what's always ever happened. Right, Margaret?
Yes, I'm muted,
Right,
but
yeah.
yes, I would expect
Yes.
the database to just close and it would be no
But
problem.
we've got this hidden window off screen.
Oh,
So it's not going to close down.
no.
And that's all kinds of problems. So this script essentially tries to evaluate, hey, are they closing this thing down? And if so, we need to close. And the other thing that we need to do is we need to go to the notifications table. We need to find the notification that has their matching global, and we need to delete it. That way this table is really thin, slim, and nothing is just getting built up and bulky in there. So when you close down, it makes sure to close everything down and delete the record that you had. Similarly, we've got a validation anytime you close a window to go and see if we need to actually perform those actions or not. Again, checking to see whether or not the PSOC is on. So sorry, this one is when you close a window, it's checking every time. This is the shutdown one. This is the one that's in your close down script. So this one's not necessarily closing the window so much as it's deleting the record. So now that we've kind of gotten that, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. So this is the alert user. If I move this off and we go over here and we go into layout mode and we double click on this, we'll see that this calls script alert users of update. So this is me, hopefully my dogs don't go crazy. This is me or the server clicking the notify. Okay. Of course, they're crazy, right? Sorry about that, guys.
No, you're
Is that
good.
pretty loud?
We can't hear. We just hear like little like soft like chunks in
Oh,
the
good
background.
job, headphones. He's a lot louder in here. Okay, so when they click that button, we want to see was an ID passed. Again, this is optional, and then we want to know if a message was passed. Then we can do an evaluation here. If the ID is empty, we know that we're notifying everyone. Otherwise, this is not set. If all is not set, then we use the person's ID. Otherwise, we use the one that's passed. And this will make sense in a second. So either we're passing the targeted person's ID or we're using our own ID. I will read that in just a second. I see that comment. I'll come back to that in just a moment. So we do some stuff over here in terms of checking to see if something is on or selecting the window. If message is not empty, then we're going to open a new window in the messages table, which should only ever have one record, and we're going to show all records. If there's more than one record or the found count is 0, we delete all the records and make a new record. This is just the quickest way I could think of this morning to make sure there's only ever one record in here. And then we set the desired value in message. If this was being used by more than one user repeatedly with different messages, you could have a record lock issue here. But the way that this has kind of been intended for me, I don't see this as necessarily being a point of an issue. In the original demo, they had lots of message records. So then we scroll down here, and now we need to find the users, okay? So we're either going to enter find mode and find the targeted ID. If it's all, we'll instead omit the current user. So that's why up here ID is either being passed as a parameter or we're grabbing the current one because I don't need to get a notification.
That's why you don't get a notification when you send it. Okay, that makes sense.
Exactly. And then we get to that part that I showed you kind of in the script bugger. It's a little counterintuitive. If found count equals 0, then we're going to do some stuff. So if all is set, we're going to delete all the notification records. This is how I've been using it. But if all is not set, then it's only going to delete one record. So the main thing to see here is delete all records versus deleting an individual record. Then what's going to happen down here is we're going to set, I think, some of those triggers or those flags. So we turn it off. This is going to go perform on record load, which I'll show you guys next. So basically, it's going to make a new record for them, if I'm not mistaken. And then we set the trigger back on. We select the window. And then let's see what we do here. Enter find mode, look for the record, perform find. Actually not 100% sure why. Oh. because we deleted the record, we need to make sure the user is on their record. Remember that one that's off screen? It's not just that Windows be open. So this is just making sure it's kind of a safety to make sure they're on that record if something has changed for some reason. Then we clear some flags. Okay, so I push these things and I'm done. Now on Margaret's machine, this on record load is going to fire. And remember, that also fires on mine, but I'm going to kind of try to bifurcate these, if that's the right use of that word.
I think so. I think you're good.
Okay, so I want to highlight these to make this a little easier. So it's going to come in here. We're gonna grab the name of the window that we're on. We're going to commit our records. We're going to abort if it's not set to off. We're going to abort if that trigger is set. Else we're going to set the trigger. And then it's going to say, hey, does the ID for the, and we should select the record. Oh, no, that's right. We're on it because that layout that we're on, that's where the script trigger fires. So contextually, that's where we kind of get jumped over to. So now it wants to know, hey, the ID that we're on, does this not equal the ID? Check if the current active record is their own record. Okay. Then we're going to select the notification record. We're just in case we're somehow not, we're going to enter find mode, look for the record. If found count equals 0, then, so sorry, I'm going to screw you guys up here a little bit. When the first person calls it, this is the thing that actually gets fired to recreate their record. And then it comes back to them to make sure that they're on their record. Or I'm sorry, I am going to totally screw people up. If everyone's record gets deleted, it has to recreate a record, period. So this is actually happening for everybody. And then this is more of that refresh stuff I told you from the original demo that I'm not using, but I kind of left in here. But you'll notice it's doing that replace on that same field.
Mm-hmm.
This again allows things visually to update on others' machines. Here is where you could bake in some logic. So like Canberra said, this could be a lot of fun. This is where you could decide that you do or do not want this to happen based on a variety of different conditions. Maybe this action happens in this condition. This action happens in this condition. Here's where you can get really creative. Okay. This is a safety to make sure that we are selecting a window that's on screen. I'm hopefully going to get to the bug. I know we are running lower on time. And then it's going to open the card window. You don't have to open a card window. You could just do show custom dialog. This doesn't have any bugs. This one has a bug. And remember, because we set message before, that relationship is a Cartesian, and there's only one message record, so we can see that message record through the relationship if we want something dynamic. I hope that part kind of makes sense. Come back over here. This is not being used. Again, this is part of the original configuration, but if you wanted to have a message call the original person back, you could configure that right here. And then we're basically just selecting some records, or selecting, excuse me, some windows. And then I think that this will make sure that the window that's off screen is on the same record. So the other script does it and this one does it. It's really vital that you're on those records. And because they can get deleted, where you're at off screen can get changed around. Like I said, this is where I see there being some fragileness. And then down here, it looks like these are doing, if this whole top part doesn't fire, again, going to try to put you on there. This really should be a subscript. This goes back to one of my very original comments that I made, that this is functional but not done. I got a functional demo and then duly walked away from my duties there. So I know that I jumped around. That wasn't the best explanation ever. Let me take a look at Yiktalk's question, and Margaret, let me know if you've got some. So Yiktalk, I don't think it's so much as asking a question as making a suggestion. I would advise checking on the first window open if there was already a record from this user, if the file crashed, etc. It's a good point. The notification record isn't really tied to you other than that ID. So like if we go back to that record, notification, there isn't anything in here that says this is mine. Now, you're right, Yiktalk, we could probably add something like account name. We can verify the account name if it already has it, tie it to them, or delete them. If FileMaker crashes and it doesn't delete the record, the worst thing that's going to happen is you are just going to have some, what do you call them? Extra records in there because you have the if found count equals 0. Well, when it goes to do the delete all, it'll still delete those ones. They'll just be ghost records. So they'll be orphaned records. So actually, it would actually end up just cleaning itself up. So if you fall, so what YikTalk is saying here is I log in, I create a notification record, my internet goes out and I get disconnected. That notification record, it doesn't get deleted. The next time I log in, I get a new one. So there's one for me, there's this orphan one, there's Margaret, there's whoever else. But if I do a system-wide notification, it's going to delete all of them. And that one that's on there that's not tied to anyone, it just won't do anything. So I don't think that you're wrong
I
by any means,
see.
YikTalk,
Okay.
but I don't think that it's not something that's going to keep me up at night too much.
Because
But
it's
if you
not going
wanted
to
to
cause a
be,
problem because it's deleting all of the other ones that aren't the one
it
that
is going to
on
just
my
kind
own.
of self clean up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
But good point. I think that having good housekeeping as a practice is nothing wrong with it. So not knocking you by any means. I'm not saying you're wrong. Um, any other questions that have come up?
I don't see any at the moment. So would you like to
All right.
discuss the bug of wonder or?
Yes, I'm going to do two more things and then we'll land this plane. Okay, so the first thing is I just want to emphasize if you do go integrate this, it is on the on record load where you can see that it opens that card window and you can customize that card window or do the passing of the message. You could alternatively turn this off and do a custom dialogue. You could, this isn't going to be in what you guys download, but some other action. Because again, this doesn't have to be a notification. That's what I'm using it for. That's kind of what the original developer did. So here's the issue that I have. And I'll talk. So Margaret, I'm going to have you fire it again in a second, but give me one moment.
No problem.
Right now, I'm selected on this window. Go ahead and push the button, Margaret.
Okay, give me a hot second. We're going.
You're supposed to just be ready.
Well, sorry. Okay, I pressed the button.
And it worked. Okay. Whoop we do. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to window. I'm going to select that window off screen. There's no reason that this window should ever be just selected. But what I always try to tell my clients, both users and developers, is as an engineer, I always try to envision or plan for situations that should happen that make no sense to me, because they happen sometimes. And so now, Margaret, go ahead and push that button.
Okay, we'll try again.
It freaking worked.
That's fine.
I mean, all right, let me try that one more time. Okay, I'm off screen. Click it again.
Yeah, we'll go. Did I click it? I'll try it again.
And now it just wants to work. I mean, I'm not going to complain about it. It could be because I only ever did it. I was on my computer on 2 copies of FileMaker. I mean, the bug shouldn't happen. So
I mean, let's try it. So what do I have to do? I have to select the window specifically. So if I click the window and I select it, it's
yeah, if you go up to window and you select the notifications
yeah, I
trigger.
clicked it. Would you like to try to
Okay.
notify me? It works.
So let me do one thing real quick then. I'm gonna go over here. Remind me later. I mean, I'm not going to complain if it doesn't, because the bug doesn't make any sense. That's the only reason I was going to show you guys the bug. Well, 2 reasons. One, because if I know that there's something wrong with something I make, I want you guys to know about it. Number 2, I thought it would be an interesting thing for someone out there to be like, I'm going to go solve it. But I had a bunch of caveats in that. So now I've got 2 copies of FileMaker open in this spot here. And so this is my older version. And this is my newer version. And so I'm just going to show you that it does work. So if I click on it, over here, I get the notification. Okay, but now over here, I'm going to click on the notification window. And over here, I'm going to click on it. And it didn't come up over here. But it seems like in the wild, this is actually working. This is really interesting.
Interesting. Why is
so
it not about this
if
here?
I click down, it's opened the card window off screen. Even though the script says, hey, this bit of logic is to fix that. I did all, for some reason, it thinks it's on this window when it's not, and it's opening the card window there. I've tried all kinds of things to troubleshoot this. And if you run it with the debugger, it works every time. So then I thought I would pass myself some messages with a custom dialog. If you do a custom dialog before this, it works 100% of the time. But it doesn't make sense to have a custom dialog and do the card. So that's why I had this in here. But it seems like if you're using in the wild where two people are not running two copies of FileMaker, which doesn't make any sense, you might not actually run into it.
I
So
wonder.
that is. Mhm. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just thinking about like why that would not work. Is it because that the other version of FileMaker isn't in focus? So like if you clicked the notification window and that was in focus on FileMaker, then you went and you opened a Safari and you tried to send a notification and then it got mad? Like that would be
My
several layers of reasons
Yeah,
to be
my
angry.
take on it is because I'm doing something. We're using it. There's this whole adage: you don't break two laws at the same time. And if you're gonna do the notifications hack, that's allowed. If you're gonna run two copies of FileMaker, that's allowed. Now, don't combine the two together. Now you're really
Now you're
So yeah, so apparently it works, and that's maybe one of the reasons I have a client, like I said, who's actually, as far as I know, using this. Jason, if you're out there, you might very well watch this now or in the future. This is something that was built because someone had a real need. And then I'm like, oh, this is pretty neat. And Richard really wanted to see some sort of demo because he thought this was so cool all those years ago when ClickWorks came out with it. But I know that we are close to needing to land this plane. Last call on questions here. You could add a current window is notification. Oh, trust me, TikTok. Oh, David, could work with on load record call a PSauce with callback. Original integration did have like a callback type thing. You can do a bunch of stuff with this. I don't know if I fully understand the question there,
that's a
David.
couple layers of like bouncing through logic for me to like
You can
visualize
do
mentally.
a bunch of different stuff. But yeah, feel free to, I see that he's typing on there. Yeah. Um, I mean, I have another client. There's not anything will ever be a demo from this, but they had a cool situation where they have 10 or 12 servers across the country, maybe it's 13, but they needed a centralized database where all of their individual requests could go to, but all of the files had to call that, but then it had to call back the correct ones. And so that all of those files call that one file and it stores their DNS and file name and the record information so that when they client because then people in WebDirect go in and like approve things, and so then that will call back the original FileMaker file, or the original FileMaker can call it back. It's kind of a neat little thing, not the same necessarily as this, but having these cross-system communications, I think is really neat. So this is like everything else RCC sometimes seems to do. This is free and available to you guys. If you're dissatisfied with it, we'll give you a full refund. That's always available. Stole that from your dad. And if you guys if you do find some bugs, please do report them to support at RC Consulting. If you find something neat to go along with this and the other add-ons, let us know. And uh, you know, for those of you who are maybe new to the add-ons or watching Wolfpack, I do kind of just want to, I don't know if this is shameless or not, emphasize that when I made Wolfpack, it wasn't just so that I could go and have something out there. It was a way of organizing my own add-ons. But I really wanted this to be kind of a community collaboration, and it's really kind of grown into that. And so Kyle Williams, who used to be one of our active participants, he's made an add-on. I don't know why that says by Richard, but apparently Richard made an add-on. I don't know if I believe that.
That would be
Calvin has
Calvin. That's a Calvin add-on. The
I'm
auto.
gonna guess, yeah. Calvin has made some really cool add-ons. Willow at Next Tech, she actually submitted this calculator one. You can see Kyle's in there a few times. Jake Shield, who does some work also for RCC and is active in the streams, he's done some. John Eisen, one of our engineers, I'm looking for. Stu, this one's I was really cool because this came from someone else, and then Calvin made something, and I made it, and Stu made it better. Jonathan Nicoletti, he's done some that if they've come on here, and I'm looking for. Oh, I'm missing my picture on that one. Oh, that's right. I usually delete some of these before I release it. You guys get all the hidden add-ons this time. Not that you're getting. There we go, Leland. So we've also got, which if you guys notice here in Starting Point, that's actually one of the add-ons that comes pre-built into it. So if you guys have something really cool, reach out to us. We'd be happy to have you on, depending on what it is, and get it in there. And I do read questions for Wolfpack personally. So if you guys come across any bugs, I've had some of you out there in the community reach out and have us correct that. But I think that's my 2 cents. I feel, or did you feel that? The tires, we've hit the runway. Uh,
Yes, that's my cue to begin doing the, actual landing of the plane. So,
I appreciate everybody's time though that came in to watch today.
yes. Thank you, everybody. Seriously, it's been awesome. Always lovely to have you on. I will see you tomorrow with Hansa. So, bye-bye, everyone.